For another British Triathlon Super Series, and you've had a good 5 weeks in Australia.
Yeah, I started the year off, my first race in Sydney, so I had a training block out in Australia. Unfortunately in Sydney I was involved in a crash and didn't actually do so well, but yeah, having a good start, good training block was awesome.
And I heard once you got back on the bike that you ran quite well for the third discipline.
Yeah, I did run well, and I was surprised after having the crash, but you know, if you're not in the race, you're not in the race, and I was just kind of running off a bit of frustration as well, I think. I would have loved to have been up there in the front group running with the best girls, but hopefully the crash hasn't knocked me too much and I'll be able to compete in the next few World Champ Series.
Well, it was looking as though the season was developing nicely because you won the Claremont in Florida, another sprint distance, so that shows there's a bit of speed in those legs for this weekend.
Yeah, I'm always a bit wary of the sprint distance because it is, you know, that a bit shorter, but I've done pretty well in the sprint in winning Brimback last year, the Super Series, and then the Claremont race earlier in the year, so this is going to be a tough race. It's the conditions are going to make it really hard tomorrow.
A little bit colder and wetter here than I suspect you had in Australia.
Yeah, the weather here is a bit cold and wet. I mean, what do you expect? Strathclyde in May, it is going to be cold. So I think everyone came prepared for that. And yeah, it's going to be a day for the girls and the guys who are tough.
What about this Super Series? I mean, you have options to compete all over the world, and yet it's great to see you turning out in all weathers, you know, across Scotland and England, and allowing British triathlon fans an opportunity to see you in action on home soil.
Yeah, I love racing in the UK, and it doesn't always fit into our schedules because especially getting closer to the Olympics, we have to race the international races to gain points. But if there is a chance to race in the UK, I love to race in the UK, and I know a lot of the other top GE athletes do as well.
It seems as though over the last sort of season and a half, you've really started to put together some consistent performances in the big races. In a sport like triathlon, it's so difficult to do that when it can so easily go wrong in a big race. What's the key to producing good performances under pressure, time and time again?
I think it's getting used to the racing. I've been racing for a few years now at this level, that helps. But it's also, you know, being a solid athlete, being good in the swim, the bike and the run. You need to have the strength of all three disciplines and the consistency of training over a good few years. You hear all the time about someone who's up and coming and they've done something, but you kind of need that background as well, I think, to consistently put it together for a whole season.
There are two opportunities to qualify for the Olympics this year, in Beijing at the Super Series Grand Final and also in Hyde Park in August. Are those two races the key focal points for you, or are you just taking each race as it comes and you'll see how things progress?
Hyde Park this year and Beijing World Champs Final, yeah, they're the main ones this year, and my whole kind of season is built around those two races really, so I hope that I've put it together and perform on those days. There is chances later on and in 2012, but it would be great to qualify this year.
I suppose it shows from the selectors that they really are working towards, they want to select athletes who can produce when they're right under pressure, when everything's on the line, which is exactly the same as it will be next year in the Olympics.
Yeah, we've got a very tough selection policy, but I think it's tough for that reason, so that we have the best people on the start line in London 2012. And I know a lot of other countries have done the same thing, made the policy tough, but you know, if you achieve that policy, then you are given the chance to prepare as well as you can for the Games.
Let's talk about this weekend then. Jodie Stimpson, the defending Super Series champion, and I know she's really looking forward to racing you.
Yeah, Jodie's such a tough competitor. She's a lovely girl, and I always like racing against Jodie. She brings her best to the start line every time. So, yeah, I think we're going to have a little battle out there tomorrow.
Who's better suited? Slightly unfair question, but who's better suited to the sprint distance? Do you think between the two of you?
I don't know. I think we're both pretty even. Jodie has got a lot of speed, and I think she's quite often one of the fastest runners for that first couple of kilometres on the run. So yeah, it's going to be interesting tomorrow, especially with the conditions being cold. I've suffered a little bit in the cold sometimes, and I've had good races in the cold, but I've also suffered, so I'm hoping that I can deal with the conditions.
Well, it's going to be a great duel between you. Thanks for talking to us. The very best of luck.
Thanks.